In this video, I want to tackle a really big question. One of the questions that encapsulates most of the videos I've done, one of the questions that the whole self-improvement um, movement can fall under this question. Most of the videos you see online, if you're watching this channel, and it came about, I was watching Rupert Spira, and someone had asked Rupert this question, and it was such a great question. Because if we're honest with ourselves, this is really the question that we are deeply involved with. And the question was, can I live a life free from anxiety? And I think Rupert's answer was something like, yes, you can. And I'll address that in just a second because he said you already are. But I want to unpack this a little bit because so much of the problem is identified with asking the question in the first place. Not wanting to be anxious is the anxiety. So right when you ask the question, you're asking the question from a state of anxiety. It's the same thing with the idea of security. You know, deeply wanting security is the manifestation of insecurity. And so can we get to the place that's asking the question? And that's where we find all kinds of interesting ironies because the mind, the thinking mind, is asking the question in the first place. Because the thinking mind deals entirely with abstractions. That's why the mindfulness movement is so powerful, because the mindfulness movement is here and now. But the mind, when we get into thinking mind, it always wanders into this abstract past, and this fictitious and abstract future that almost never turns out the way it speculates it to. I mean, you make plans and God laughs. And we know that if we start keeping track of how often the mind goes down a path and is certain like this or that will happen, it rarely turns out that way. So the mind is trying to get control desperately over a situation that it has no control over. So in that sense, if you're coming from a place that's asking the question, the answer is no. You cannot live a life of free from anxiety, and you can't, because the place that's asking the question is the place that's causing the anxiety. If you start exploring these other states of awareness beyond the thinking mind, which is what all of this is about, getting past the thinking mind and back to the vast human experiences that have been with us for millions of years before the thinking mind came online, and it's so prevalent in the other animals that are walking or crawling or flying on this planet. They don't ask those kinds of questions. Can I live? It's not like this rabbit out back jumping around and it's pondering, how do I live a life free from anxiety? It never asks the question because it's not set up in a way that it falsely identifies with the part of the mind that's actually asking the question in the first place. That's the trick. It doesn't see that the problem is the one that's asking how to solve the problem. So it's really just a spiritual variant on the idea of how do you become rich? And you could think about how many videos are out there about how do you become rich? Well, let me put it to you this way. Would you rather be rich, or would you rather me totally take away and eliminate your desire for money? And those are two really different kinds of questions. And if you ponder it, you'll see that the mind will always want to be rich, because being rich is just another manifestation of control. But it doesn't see that being rich just comes with all kinds of other problems. And then you're worried about the money being taken away. I mean, really, a far better option would be to take away your desire to be rich. I mean, but it's a tricky one. You could also go down another path and ask something similar with pleasure. Would you rather have a life filled with physical pleasures, or would you rather simply have that aspect of the mind eliminated where you no longer desired physical pleasure? And if you're really honest with yourself, you'll see that the mind is strongly attracted to option number one. So the whole point of the video is, can you see that the problem is with asking the question in the first place? It's a very honest question. We all have asked it at one point, how do I live a life free from anxiety? But the part of you this thinking mind, which is very new. It's just a small fraction of the totality of human experience. It's the one that's asking the question. And the true paradox is it's really, how do I live a life that's free from me that's causing all the problems? And it can't. It can't. There's no way the mind can ever be free from the mind. But when you explore the amazing multiplicity of conscious states beyond the thinking mind, this is what I think Rupert meant. Like, you're already not anxious. You'll realize that there are all kinds of interesting states of consciousness that have no interest in even asking that problem in the first place.